Hey famous warrior, welcome back to our channel. Today I have an exciting guest. I think more exciting for me than for you guys. But we're continuing our Shadow Ground conversations, and if this is any indication of how much I respect this person, I literally have to read their bio because I don't want to mess it up. So I'm joined today by Maggie Kaunda. She is a woman of deep conviction and quiet strength. She is a wife, she's a mom, she's a lawyer by profession, and someone whose life is deeply rooted in faith and service. Maggie specializes in alternative dispute resolution and trade policy, using her legal expertise to promote peace, economic growth, and inclusion in Zambia. Whether she is empowering differently abled youth through her unique ability and initiative, or helping shape trade frameworks at a national level, Maggie brings wisdom, heart, and hope in every space that she enters. And she's my sister. On top of all those amazing things, she is a big sister who God has blessed me with, that I'm so happy about, because when you're firstborn, you're used to always being there for your siblings, and you're not really used to having somebody always show up for you in that sense. So Maggie is that person to me, and I'm so happy that she's here, and I'm happy to share her with you guys. So I hope that you enjoyed this conversation. Sis, thanks for being here.
It's great to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
This is amazing. Yeah. Anyway, the cameras are around, so we'll respect ourselves and be dignified. We'll be dignified. Yes. So I'm super excited to get into this conversation with you for many reasons, but the most important, that I think is most important to the person watching, is you were one of my early readers. And not just one of my early readers, you are the most excited early reader. And in the beginning, I thought it's because you're my big sister. But then later I saw that it was more than that. And so I'm looking forward to digging into what that was and where you're at and what the book did and is doing and all that stuff. So before we jump into that, in true famous warrior fashion, tell the people watching 5 fun facts about you.
5?
Yes.
Wow.
Only 5.
Only 5? Okay. Fun facts. Let me see. The first one I'll share is that I am a big fan of Christmas movies.
Oh.
I love Christmas movies to the point that when we could afford DSTV back then, we only paid premium in December so that I could watch Christmas movies.
Nice.
Yeah. And the second one I can quickly think of is another Christmas movie related. So, there's one Christmas movie I watch every year during Christmas, and then some. And this is The Holiday.
Ah.
You know, I've watched it for over 10 years now. Every year.
Wow.
And it's a beautiful movie.
Yeah.
Kate Winslet,
Yes.
Cameron Diaz,
Yes.
and
Yes.
Jude Law.
I think that's
Yeah.
why.
Yeah, and Jack Black, of course. It's
Yes.
a very nice movie. Third fun fact. So I love to bake for fun, but maybe not just for fun. I love to bake when I'm sad, when I'm happy, when I'm exhausted, when I'm not. I bake.
It's therapeutic for you.
Very therapeutic. So sometimes I'm in the kitchen at 2 a.m. and I'm baking.
Wow.
And my husband is like,
Madam, what's
Madam,
happening?
what's going on? Like, are you sad? Are you happy? Are you excited? You know, which one is it? So yeah, I bake a lot just for fun. Fourth one, I'm an introvert, believe it or not. Do you believe it?
Yes, I do.
Yeah. So I am an introvert, but a lot of people find it very strange.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because I kind of only discovered this about myself only a few years ago.
Wow.
Yeah, there's certain things that just didn't fit in. And then when I kind of analyzed myself, I discovered I was actually an introvert. That's why. So I'm okay.
Yes.
Right? And then the fifth one. So the fifth one I can think of is I have 3 children. But somehow I'm a mother to so many children. Our home is always bustling with kids, and a lot of them call me mom. And when I go places with some of these kids, and I'm asked, "Oh, we thought you only had 3 kids." Sometimes it's a little awkward because I'm not sure how to answer it. But the truth is, I have so much connection with a lot of kids, family, non-family. And I think that's a fun fact.
Yeah.
Is that 5?
I think so too, yes.
Okay.
5.
Yeah.
Okay. So you were one of my early readers and one of my guests at the book launch, the Shadowground book launch. And the question that I asked my panel, you were not on the panel, but you should have been. Yes. So this is your opportunity to be on the panel.
Okay.
And I'll start our conversation by asking the question that I asked first that night, which was, how has your upbringing and your culture shaped your views on mental health? When you think back to little Maggie, what were her interactions with mental health issues, and what are your thoughts about them now, looking back?
I was a problem child. So
Really?
yes, believe it or not. So my parents struggled to deal with how to handle me during the separation. And I hate to say this, but I always remember it. They actually divorced on my 9th birthday. So a lot of that I carried on me, but obviously I couldn't express it to anyone. I didn't even know what I was feeling myself. So I think in terms of the culture, I would just say I grew up in an environment where expressing myself was not a thing. So if you had thoughts, if you had apprehensions, if you were sad, you were happy, most times you just kept it to yourself. I kept it to myself. So sometimes when the emotions were deep and the issues were, I felt like I needed to express myself, then sometimes it came out in different ways. So how that shaped me now is that even after I was a fully grown adult, married with children, CEO of a company, I was still struggling to express myself, and I would go into environments where I need to stand up and address important people, and I'm scared out of my socks, the night before I can hardly sleep because I'm thinking, okay, how will I say it? I'm second guessing myself all the time. A lot of distorted thinking around who I was, whether I was good enough, whether I was showing up, whether I had the right outfit, always overthinking everything.
Yeah.
So I think in terms of culture, the one thing I can really think about was the fact that I didn't have that freedom to express myself. And most of it was in, the elderly people saying, don't talk back when I'm talking to you.
Which is every mostly every African or every Zambian's story, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
If there are elders in the room, you walk out. Even if you have an idea and an elderly person says something and it's wrong, you can't challenge them. So ultimately, growing up, I ended up carrying that along and thinking it was okay. And now I know better.
Yeah.
It's not okay.
Yeah. Wow. You've always struck me as somebody who is strong in a lot of senses of that word. Strong in your faith, strong in your marriage, strong in your values, strong as a person of character. And so hearing that, I'm like, wait, what? Wow. So getting to where you've gotten, especially in your career, and having to break through certain barriers, break through certain ceilings as a woman, how have you navigated that? And when was your come to Jesus moment where you realized okay, I need to get my act together and actually put my big girl panties on and act like a grown woman in this space where I need to communicate my thoughts in a mature, concise, objective way. Like, if you can remember one particular instance where you had to, like, girl.
I can remember many, actually. Yeah, so I can remember many.
Yeah.
But one thing I want to say is that reading books for me has helped me to really have these aha moments. You know, read a line and you're like, wait a minute, this is so me, and this is what it is. You know, I can actually put a name to this. It's got a name. So I've had a lot of aha moments in the last couple of years. And one of the books that I read over and over is a book called Changes That Heal. I facilitate at church, Miracle Life Family Church. And what God has been doing in my life through the facilitations is that every time I'm facilitating the book, I am the one who's being facilitated, if you know what I mean.
On the table.
And I'm like, God, but this is the 10th time I'm reading this book. What's going on? You know what I mean? Yeah. So one such time was, I was actually acting CEO in a certain company, and the following day I was going to be presenting the strategic plan of the company to officials, you know, in government, and for as an approval, part of the approval process. And I was really, really unsettled, you know, but it was a period that I was actually reading Changes That Heal for purposes of facilitating. And the night before that meeting, I had an aha moment where I read a line which reminded me that, look, no one person is one up better than you. And it doesn't matter that, you know, they have a certain higher position than you do. The issue is that you are the same, except that they are leading in that particular area. So the way you process that is really should be a way that, you know, doesn't make me feel that I am less than the other person. I tell you, Louise, when I went into that meeting, I felt so confident.
Wow.
And it could only have been God. And you know, it was a but God moment, because when I carried myself in that meeting and how it went, I had a couple of people come to the side and say, what happened to you?
Who is this person?
Yes, who is this person? Where did you take our person? This is not her. You know, so that is just one example of many. So I've had a lot of aha moments along the way, in different experiences, books mainly, but sometimes it's been a sermon at church, sometimes it's been talking to people, and God has his ways. Yeah, he has his ways.
Wow. Okay. So if you look at your past 5 years, and I'm picking 5 years because for me Shadow Ground has been based on my experience the past 5 years. So before COVID and then going into COVID, what would you say your biggest cause of shadow ground in Maggie's life has been? Shadow ground, when we talk about maybe like a difficult time that you've gone through, a time maybe where your faith in God was shaken, or you just weren't okay for whatever reason.
Yeah, so talking about the COVID days, those were very difficult times. They came in waves, you know. We had this different strains, and at the time I was working in an industry where we depended a lot on people traveling, and because we were kind of like a border institution, we really felt the impact. So apart from the personal aspects where I was losing people that I loved, and most of them I couldn't see in hospital, I just heard, and then I had this personal space where I was afraid that it would reach my home, and it did in some strains. Also on the work front, there was this challenge where we just were not getting business, and we were getting pay cuts, and you know, we were getting this publicity about, are we doing this right, are we doing this right? And so for me, the COVID space was a very difficult space. I think the main the main pain about that period was really losing people really close to me.
Yeah.
Especially that there were times when there was a period when we had that strain, I think it was a Delta strain, where every time you woke up in the morning, you saw a face or two or three
that you knew.
Media, yes,
right?
on social media. It was too close for comfort.
Yeah.
And so it was really hard, you know. You don't know whether to cry. You don't know whether to reach out. You don't know what to do. I mean, at the time, I did lose even people that I personally knew. So it was a very difficult time to navigate.
Yeah.
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 And the paranoia as well.
Yeah.
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 Got to me.
How do you think? In a previous conversation with Dr. Maria, we were talking about the global trauma that everybody went through because of the global pandemic of COVID, right? So when we talk about things like that and how the effect was so close to home, how do you think that trauma has affected you post that time? Because it's been 5 years, right? And most people would think like, we're over it, let's move on. But like for me personally, there's still some remnants of that trauma. So how does that show up for you, and how do you deal with it? Or do you deal with it?
Whether I deal with it or not, I don't know. But it shows up in, you know, sometimes just the apprehensions of, you know, it's like death is really real now. So having had it hit so close to home during that period so often, sometimes even a normal flu in the home feels like, oh my gosh, could it be? And this is also because, you know, out there in social media and in the news, in the media, there is a lot of talk around how the COVID is still there, or there are different strains and it's only a season, other things will happen. So obviously it's that fear. I don't think I had that fear before, but now it's really real. And sometimes now, as you ask the question, I'm just digging deep and thinking, wait a minute, maybe this is where it came from. Exactly,
right?
Exactly. So that's one of it. But also, I think that to a certain degree, I have lost a certain sense of interaction, especially when it comes to meetings. You know, it's only now that I'm trying to get back into face-to-face, because virtual has become the reality. You know what I mean?
And it's convenient.
It's very convenient, and you know, you can do 5-10 things in the background and pretend that you're actually in the meeting.
Just turn your camera
off. And then when somebody asks you, you're like, sorry, I didn't hear that. I dropped off for a little bit. You know what I mean? So just learning to interact again with people at a real level, you know, to the extent that now when I'm asked to have a meeting, I would rather propose that it should be a physical, even when people are kicking and screaming that it should be virtual, because I really want to reconnect with people.
Yeah, that makes so much sense, because even just as Africans, we're very relational, and so that was stripped from us, and now we're trying to figure ourselves out again, right? So when you talk about dealing with grief, you know, losing people, whether it's during COVID or for other reasons, or before or after COVID, like I said earlier, you've always struck me as somebody who's strong in your faith, just this steady person who loves the Lord and is just consistent when it comes to the things of God. But how have you navigated such seasons, especially with grief and loss of people that you love, and reconciling this God that you love and serve so faithfully not showing up or answering certain prayers that you maybe prayed for loved ones and then they still pass away? How have you dealt with stuff like that?
Well, I don't know if I have dealt with it. Obviously, every loss is different. It hits differently. And what I realize, and this is something you mentioned in your book, that sometimes we think that grief is only related to the loss of a loved one, but it's actually a lot of things that we grieve. But obviously I'll focus on the question around losing loved ones. And I lost my dad when I was 18, and it really hit me. It hit me quite badly, to the point that when the funeral was in Kitwe, my mom was here in Lusaka. We traveled, we came back, and when we came back, I just would never leave my room. I can't remember for how long. And then my mom dragged me in the best way she knew how. She's always, so that strength you see in me, I get it from her. Oh my goodness, she is such a strong woman, and she shows up in the strength, even in the way that she speaks. So sometimes when I was growing up, I felt like she didn't like me so much, or why was she so rough? But all this to just say that when she came to see me, to talk to me about how I was handling the loss of my dad, she strongly came on me around how she thought I should stop it, And I was like, wait a minute, how do I stop what I'm feeling, But there's something profound that she said that I carry even up to today, where she told me, look, when you lose a loved one, you never get over it. You just learn to live with it. So having carried that, I thought to myself at the time that, look, okay, I will learn to live with it. And over time, it felt like I had. But it was strange that sometimes it would be years, and I would still feel a certain...
It hits you
yes,
like a wave.
It hits me like a wave, and I'm like, wait a minute, I thought I was over it, or at least that I was learning to live with it. How is it that I still feel the pain? And of course, I've lost a lot of loved ones along the years, and they have hit me really deeply. But recently, in August last year, I lost my older sister. Oh my goodness. Am I allowed to cry?
Yes, girl.
Yeah, so anyway, I'll try not to. But, my sister was, she was an icon. She was like a parent. She was a hero.
Yeah.
She was, it felt like, when she died, I felt like I lost a part of me, because we were extremely close, and it felt like, I always felt like she was invincible, you know what I mean? So when she passed away, I realized that she wasn't, and neither was I, So the grief struck me in a number of ways and in different layers. First of all, there was the loss of a friend, a sister, a confidant. And up to now, there are certain things I do, and I always smile. Now I can smile about it and think, wait a minute, Taya taught me this. Taya taught me that. I can do this because she said, But then when I just lost her, I couldn't even stand looking at her picture and just thinking she's no longer here, So that grief really struck me. So when you asked me to be one of your early readers, I don't know if I shared this with you, and if I didn't, I'm going to share it now. I didn't want to, because I was actually telling God, why are you doing this to me? I am not ready. I am in pain. Why do you want me to start digging up stuff that I'm not ready to deal with this. You see? Yeah. So for a moment there, I actually was even gonna say, look what, Louise, the timing is not great. I can't do this. But I'm glad that I listened to my heart, and obviously I prayed about it, and I felt the nudge to go ahead and read the book Shadow Ground. And oh my God, it's one of the best things that happened to me in terms of starting to feel that God was really there and that he felt the pain that I was feeling. Yeah, so how I navigate a good God and losing a loved one, especially in the case of my sister, which is one of the most recent, not the most recent, but one of the most recent losses I had, is it's tough. It's tough, especially when you feel that you're a person of faith.
Yeah.
And then you've also seen God come through in many ways,
Yeah.
all the time,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And then you pray, and in wisdom you do what you can, seek the medical attention.
Yeah.
And you're like, okay, God, as you are doing your part, I'm also doing mine. Let's work together on this. And it looks like, things are going to be okay. And then, boom, she's gone, And for her, she struggled with an illness over time.
Yeah.
So she went into dips and she came out of them, went into dips. So this was one of the dips,
Yes,
and we thought she'll bounce back, definitely. But then when she passed, what I couldn't deal with was the fact that I wasn't in control of my thoughts. My mind just went on a whole new road of its own. I couldn't control. I felt like I couldn't control what I was thinking. And some of the thoughts I was thinking was, God, are you really there?
Yeah.
God, where are you? I think I'm about to drown.
Yeah.
I think I'm about to die too.
Yeah.
I was in a panic.
Yeah.
And so it was really hard, even though my faith was still strong and I still believe that God is a good God and He doesn't do evil at all.
Yeah.
She was gone.
Yeah.
So it was really difficult for me to say, okay, but He allowed it to happen. Okay, if He did, why?
Yeah.
Can I get some answers?
Yeah. Yeah.
Is there something we could have done differently? Did we pray enough? Those thoughts kept creeping in. And I think the biggest challenge for me was not being able to just put a leash on the thoughts and say, look, come over here. I'm in control of you. I felt like my mind had just gone off on a tangent and I couldn't call it back.
Wow.
So then it affected my physical health. And so I started having complications in my body, a lot of pain. And I just couldn't make sense of it. And then my mind then started to say, and I know when I say my mind, I mean, the question would be, okay, what do you really mean your mind? Yeah, but it's these thoughts coming in, and then sometimes not even realizing that actually the devil is now capitalizing on the thoughts that are in my mind, and he's beginning to tell me, look, you're really sick as well. And
You're
that's how
also
it started
dying.
With your sister.
Oh,
You're also going.
Oh my God.
Yeah, so it was just being in that space where I could say, you know what, God, I don't know what to do.
Wow.
I think do what you've got to do, but I think I have no fight left in me. So just surrendering it all to Him, but at the same time feeling very scared. Yeah. So, yeah.
Wow. Okay, I'm visualizing this, right? Your mind is going crazy, all these thoughts. The devil is also whispering his lies, amplifying certain things that are not truth. How did you process them? Did you process them out loud with somebody, your husband, somebody? Because now you're talking about your confidant, he's not there anymore. And not that she was the only one. But because for me, when I was in the pit of pits, my pit of pits, I didn't. And that was a big mistake. Like, I really didn't. And it kept me there longer. Like, now in hindsight, I can see that I wouldn't have been there as long as I did had I just said, guys, I'm drowning here, because I did have people I could trust, and I did have people who would have helped me, but I don't know whether it was a combination of pride, fear, denial, I don't know, that kept me from actually voicing out what was happening inside, the darkness inside. And I'm curious whether you were quick to raise your hand and say, hey, I'm drowning, Kaunda, and I need you, or whoever it is that you would call on, or it took time. How did you walk through that space?
Yeah, so for me it was obvious from the onset that I was actually losing myself. So people around me, closest to me, could see me, what's the word? They could see me, people around me could see that I was actually going,
like you were fading.
I was fading, that's the word. I started to lose weight. I couldn't get up, I couldn't eat. I was incoherent sometimes, so they reached out. A couple of people reached out, my older sister. So I speak about my late sister, but I have another sister and other sisters as well. But this one, my immediate older sister, Chilua. So the three of us were like really, really tight. So just knowing that I still had her, I was able to reach out to her, but also she was able to see that there was something wrong. And she reached out. Also my husband, obviously, he's the one who was sharing that bed with me every day and could tell that there was something really wrong. So they started to speak to me about getting help and saying, look, there is something really wrong and you need to get help. So having that support, and obviously friends as well. There are close friends who reached out, people who felt what I was feeling to a certain degree, and somehow in God's wisdom they knew what to do, they knew what to say. But getting that help for me was very important. And I also did say, look, I'm over here, I need help. And I did try as much as possible to express what I was feeling. So in expressing what I was feeling, then the people around me didn't have to guess. They could get me the help that I needed because I was telling them what I was feeling. So then I had to get professional help, both for my physical and my mental state. And when I did, and I began to share with the experts what I was going through, and they began to put a name to the things I had, and they were asking me questions that were making me think, because I really didn't want to think. I was just feeling. I didn't want to think. It was too much work. So getting the professionals telling me, look, you actually are going through deep anxiety. It's depression, and they're giving it names, and I'm obviously scared. But then again, I'm thinking, okay, if it has a name, then I know that it can be handled. It's good to know. So getting that help, resisting some of it though. Because then when somebody tells you anxiety and you need meds, I'm like, no, I don't need that. I can't do that. I'm fine. I'll pray. I'm a believer. I'm gonna pray this out, But then just realizing that actually I can get help, comes in different ways. And this is why your book, oh my God, Louise, God spoke to you. He really did. And I think I told you this before. You know why I say that even after resisting and then coming around to reading it, I thank God that I did, because it was just talking about my life. Every line, every thought, every instruction, every scripture is what I needed in that season. Wow. Because I get to a point where I feel like if I didn't read that book, I probably would still be stuck right now. Because in the book, you talk about your own life, your own personal experiences, and how over time there was a build-up. It wasn't just that one thing, And I realized that even though I was grieving my sister, I had, a few months before, almost a year before, just left my job of 11 to 12 years. And previously, Kaunda, my husband, had said, you know what, you want to get help over this, are you okay? And I said, oh no, I'm good. You know, I'm happy that I left. It was time. Maybe I would have loved to stay longer, but it's okay, it was time. But I didn't realize that there's certain things I didn't process. And then a few months after leaving the job, I was diagnosed with an autoimmune disease. So it was beginning to feel like, okay, God, what's this pattern? And where is it leading to? So when I read your book and seeing that there are a lot of things in there that I could relate to really closely, then I began to feel I wasn't alone. But also seeing how God led you through that path gave me hope. But then also the interactive nature of the book made me stop and think and reflect, made me stop and listen to different information that would help me to actually think through and process what I was going through, and then begin to feel that, look, there is actually hope. I will get out of this, and that God is present the whole time. He never left, you know. And I think at some point you make a reference to Psalm 139, you know, even though I go to the deepest darkness, He is there. And that's where I was, the deepest darkness, where at some points I just felt like I just want to sleep and not wake up. You know, so reading that book gave me that assurance that, look, it's not over. You know, you're gonna get up, and it's not just because you're going to get up, but God has a purpose for you. And that purpose is that, first of all, you're gonna get well, you're gonna live a long and full life, and that which He started, He's going to complete. And this is just a bump in the road. And I think one scripture that kept coming to me, and if I'm not mistaken, it's there in your book. You see what I mean, Louise? I think it's the scripture where Jesus tells us that in this world we'll experience trials and tribulations, but we must be of good cheer because He has overcome the world. I love that scripture even from way back, and I always used to quote it, but this time I could really understand what He meant when He said you will experience trials and tribulations. So navigating this for me has really been a whole new experience. A lot of moments where I feel like, okay, God, I know you're taking me somewhere. I know sometimes it doesn't feel like you are, but I will trust that you are. And I have some tools now that can help me to do what I need to do. And I told you I like to read. So how I read most of my books, especially those that have an impact on me, is that it's like the Bible, right? Sometimes you just go into Psalm and you want to read the Psalms. I go to chapters and I say, okay, today I want to read this chapter because I know that this is what I'm feeling, and it had something in there for me. And that's what Shadow Ground has become. It's become one of those books which is basically a reference for my life. And yeah, thank you.
Wow.
Yeah, thank you.
Wow. I don't even have words. You know, when you do certain things out of obedience, you think that it's about you obeying. You don't really see the bigger picture. Like how can you? You can't when God says do this, and especially when it's uncomfortable, like writing this book was. And it's one thing to write a book, and then it's another thing to release the book. And to feel like you've put all your business out there, right? And
that's another thing, putting your business out there. Okay, now I've always known you as a private person. And when you came out, first of all, with Famous Warrior, I was like, what's happening? And then Shadow Ground, you know, the detail that you put in that book about your personal life and how it just felt right for me to read what you were sharing and how it felt that actually this is what we need to do. We overcome by the blood of the Lamb and the word of our testimony. But for a very long time, we're told to shush.
Yeah.
And because of that, a lot of people are not getting the help that they need because they just think, okay, Louise, okay, Maggie is a strong woman, you know, and she can never go through anything, you know, she somehow, you know, just has got it all made.
Yeah.
But then when people like you begin to just page by page start to share your life and to say, guys, I am a Christian and I have been all my life, but this is my life and this is what I have been through and it's real, and you know, nobody's going to keep me quiet anymore because I think somebody has got to hear this. You know, that's why your book has ministered to me, and I believe it has and is still and will continue ministering to many people, because you put your life out there, not just because it was a social media statement that you needed to make, which that's what we've become now. We give our good side, you know, filters and all, but you came to us with no filters, and because of that, I am receiving my healing.
Wow.
God bless you.
Wow.
Yeah.
I want to talk about the strong woman. There's no better time than now to be a woman, right? And what comes with that is the necessity of being strong and bold and tenacious and all these amazing things, you know, that I think God has given many women the ability, and actually anointed many women with the ability to be all these things and break the ceilings and break barriers and blaze new trails for generations that are coming. And unfortunately, a byproduct of that, that's not a great byproduct, is this image of strength that we must always have. It's not that we shouldn't be strong. I think we should, but with strength, there must be a counterbalance of weakness, because we are human, right? But social media, society, culture, you know, upbringing, education, name it, whatever it is that your thing, fill in the blank, that makes you feel, especially as a woman. We've had Nick and Pastor Benjamin on here to talk about the male perspective and being a strong man and what that looks like. But then there's also the female side. We must be strong. You're a wife, you have to show up. You're a mother, you have to show up. You are a CEO, you are an entrepreneur, you're all these things, you wear all these hats, and you must be all these things to all these people, right? And then you go through something like what you're describing or what I've described in the book. Where do we get the permission to say, guys, I'm not okay. The strong woman that you are used to is not strong today. Because I personally felt like I didn't have the permission to do that. And that's for several reasons, right? Being a firstborn, being raised by a single mom, all these things that kind of shape who you are and how you view the world. And they fool you into believing that even when you're not okay, you cannot say that you're not okay. Because you still have to be there for the kids, you still have to show up for your business, you still have to show up for work, you still have to show up for your parents, you still have to show up for your husband. Everybody else has all these expectations, and we've fallen for the lie that the expectations must come above our well-being as women. You know, I will do it until I drop dead, literally. Because so-and-so is expecting this of me and I can't let them down. And what are your thoughts about that? You've talked about, you know, facilitating changes that you're a leader in our church. You do premarital counseling. You know, part of the Young Couples Forum, and you're dealing with all these, especially young brides, right? Yeah. When you're a young bride and you're being, you know, prepared for marriage, it's not that they tell you you can't not be okay, but it's implied.
Yeah.
Especially as an African bride, it's implied that as a wife and a mother, you must.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts about that? How do you, especially after what you've gone through, how has that changed how you counsel young ladies?
Yeah, so it's a big one. It's a big one, and I think it will take a lot to begin to change the narrative.
Yeah.
And I feel personally that it's my responsibility to start even in my own household, to speak with my 9-year-old daughter and tell her, look, it's okay not to be okay. Yeah. There is a lot that needs to be done. I, for a very long time, had felt that when there is something going on there, I need to be there. I need to be this super mommy. I need to be this super wife. I need to be this super employee, super friend, super sister,
Everything.
super daughter. Right? It's been a tough life because that's all that I have known. But I have actually, in the past couple of years, started to slowly learn to say no with no explanation. Because I have realized that I'm the one who feels what I feel. And sometimes feeling what I feel is, I don't understand it myself, so I can't explain it to you. So I'll just say no.
Yeah, because I'll end up lying.
Exactly. And also that if I start to explain and get into an argument with you, you may just convince me.
Yeah.
You see?
Yeah.
You may just convince me to go ahead and do it. And I will think, okay, yeah, let me just go ahead. But that doesn't change how I'm feeling.
Yeah.
That doesn't change that I'm exhausted. That doesn't change that I'm upset right now and I just want to be alone. That doesn't change the fact that I already feel bad that I'm not at the children's recitals because I have to travel and be at a work meeting. You know what I mean? So, no.
Yeah.
Is a complete sentence.
Yeah.
You know? So, but also, obviously, wisdom demands that this is communicated slowly and lovingly to the people around who then eventually begin to appreciate that, look, we also need, as much as you are looking out for yourself, we also need to look out for you. So then when they begin to appreciate that about you, those days when you don't show up or you can't show up, they will understand and cover you and say, you know what, she can't make it today. If there's an explanation to give, they'll give it with conviction.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I think it will take a very long time for us women and even men to begin to realize that the narrative won't change unless we are also those people that offer the support.
Yeah.
Those people who are a pillar of strength to the person whose ground is caving in, you know. And only when we begin to show up for others, show up for ourselves and of course for others, will then it become normal for people to be able to say, also me, teacher me. You know, you know how it is. I mean, that's how it happened back in school, you know, just because one person says I can't, then everyone looks around and think, wait a minute, you can actually say that. You can also can't. I don't understand. And that's where we need to go with this, you know, where we can tell our children, we can tell the people we are counseling, we can tell our siblings, even our mothers who we think have got it all made, to tell them, you know what, Mom, it's okay.
Yeah.
You know, so I think that we have a lot of work to do.
Yeah.
And Shadow Ground is a good start. Yeah, it's a good start.
All this said, you know, everything that you shared, you started from, you know, little Maggie, the problem child. I find that so hard to believe.
That's a story for another day.
The problem child, little Maggie, and how you've evolved over the years and mismanaged some things and had to regroup and relearn and unlearn and all this stuff. When you look at your life, especially the past 2 years, what has surprised you about yourself?
The past 2 years, what has really surprised me about myself is the fact that I can stop. Yeah, just stop. I've literally been running.
And you won't self-combust.
Yeah. Just stop, breathe, and do nothing. You know, that has really shocked me about myself, but what I have learned is that it's in the silence that I hear God speak. So the things that God has told me in the past 2 years, and it's funny you should say 2 years, because it's almost 2 years that I've actually got into that space where I can just stop.
Yeah.
I have heard him say a lot of things that I think he had been saying for some time, but I just wasn't listening because I was busy. I was really busy. So that has surprised me about myself, that I actually have the capacity to stop.
Wow. What would you say has surprised Kaunda, your husband? Has you shared anything about this woman that you're becoming?
I would say that I think the capabilities that I have exhibited in as far as being present, because I have stopped, I have actually made efforts to do certain things in the family space that I didn't do. So I was that parent who never did school runs, never went to school concerts. And there are a lot of things that my family was deprived of because I wasn't available. So I think for Kaunda to see this side of me, I think is more human than, the one in jackets and blazers and guns blazing. I think I would speak for him, when I say I think that perhaps seeing this side of me, just mellow, slow down, do things that I ordinarily wouldn't do. Yeah, I think that has definitely done something for him. At least I hope so. Yeah.
Before I ask for your official review of Shadow Ground, I know you gave one nice detailed one that we posted on social media, but before I ask you for an official review at the end of this video, if your sister could see you now, the person that you've become through losing her, what do you think she would say?
I think my sister would say, I knew you could do it. Yeah. She would say, I knew it, Maggie, I knew it. And we would have a good laugh about it, maybe a cry and a hug. But I think she would say, I knew you could do it. And most of the things that I've set out to do, I am sad that she's not here to do them with me. But I know she definitely would be saying, I knew it. I knew this was going to happen, and I'm not surprised.
Wow. What a blessing to have had her.
Yeah. Huge blessing.
Yeah. Okay. Official review of Shadow Ground. For the person watching this video that has not read the book or was like, should I? What would you say about the book to encourage somebody to pick it up?
Yeah, so the book, to be honest, I would say that it's personal. It's a very personal walk. That book takes you through, at least it took me through areas that I was not comfortable to go. But also not only for myself, but for others. So there could be those who are saying, but I haven't dealt with issues. And maybe you will. We pray you don't. But the idea is that when you do read the book, those tools that will help you to navigate how you can show up for others and not give responses that will make the person feel worse than they were feeling when they got into that space. But also for self, I would say there's a lot in there for different people and different aspects of your life. some of them I didn't relate to them from a grief perspective, but from a strength and growth perspective, from an appreciation of who I was and why I'm where I am and where I can go. So I would encourage anyone who hasn't read Shadowground to read it, because it has so many faces, and one moment you pick it up and you're dealing with an issue, the other minute you're encouraged, the other minute, you're thinking to yourself, I see myself in Louise, or I see myself in that third person who showed up for Louise, or the one who didn't show up for Louise. So, and also I think there is something in there for everyone, because you talk about your marriage with Caesar, and I was like, oh my goodness, Louise. But this just to say that there's everything for everyone, because the way you intimately talk about that whole chapter about you and how that space you were in affected your marriage, and how Caesar came through, but also how he also struggled, is a good portion for marrieds to read, whether or not they've been through what you guys have been through. Because to be honest, all of us have been through stuff. So the book, I think it just does a whole 360 on life.
Wow.
Yeah. So I would encourage anyone who hasn't read that book to read it, and not just to get one copy, but a number of copies for others to read. Book studies should be done on that book.
Wow, thank you. That means a lot coming from you. Somebody that I've looked up to, especially in the church space, the faith space, the marriage space, the momming space. You've just been this, I don't know. And I don't know if other people say this to you, but to me, and I'm so grateful to God that He has allowed us to become close over the past few years, because I would look up to you from a distance, growing up in church and stuff, and God has just kind of brought you and Kaunda close to Caesar and I in this season of our lives, and we're so grateful, because we learn a lot. We might not be in your space every day, but we learn a lot by you guys just showing up as who you are, unapologetically just you, and it means a lot coming from you. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for having this conversation with me. I know it will bless a lot of people, but I hope people will be brave enough to look themselves in the mirror. Yeah, because I think from what you've said, that's something that you had to do. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, famous warriors, I hope that this conversation has been a blessing to you. It has inspired you, it has shaken you, it has done all the things that you can trust to find in this safe space called Famous Warrior. Our hope is that even as you navigate life, Maggie talked about grief, and not just grieving a loved one, but different things in life that we grieve, that you remember that even as you grieve, whatever it is that you're grieving, that you are worth the fight, and that God hasn't given up on you. He is fighting with you and for you, and because of that, you can keep fighting too.